All right, David Security here, and I want to give you an overview of my approach to content, how I approach working with B2b, physical security service providers, integrators, and such. I make a lot of these presentations to prospective clients, onboarding new clients, and so forth. So, quick little story of my backdrop. I'm trying to do this in another 10 minutes or less, something more or less like that. So I'm just going to be quick with it. If you want to know more about my background, check out my LinkedIn profile here. Basically, I went from being a U.S. Marine to a security director to a security writer. How did this happen? It's an interesting story. You can learn more about it on my profile. But let's just get right into it about content. So, as I stated earlier, I focus on B2B marketing, content writing for security providers and integrators in the physical security space. So here it goes. So as a security professional, I know what good content looks like, and I know what I want out of content, right? I want it to be engaging, actionable, and shareable, right? 47% of B2B buyers view 3 to 5 pieces of content before engaging with a sales representative, right? That's statistics that's only going to increase with time as content becomes more a necessity for businesses operating in a very saturated environment. But so from that perspective, if the best content needs to be engaging, actionable, and shareable, then the question becomes, how do we produce this content, right? Now, from a client perspective, they want content to be efficient, authentic, and strategic, right? So there's sort of a gap there, right? Because as a client, if I'm going to hire an agency or a content writer, I want it to be efficient. I don't want it to be dragged out. I want the process to be sharp. I want the turnaround time to be quick, in the sense that it matches with my business reality, right? And I want it to be authentic. I don't want it to look like just another chat GPT produced content. I don't want it to just look exactly like my competitors and so on and so forth. So I want those two things in place, right? And lastly, I need it to be strategic. I need it to match my North Star, what I'm trying to drive for my business and so forth. So how do we get there, right? We have to create a framework to make it happen. So, in my experience, I've written the traditional blogs, and I continue to write these traditional blogs, and you see them everywhere, right? 5 key electronic security trends, 3 ways to optimize your physical security systems, so on and so forth. You see the blog, you know that it's going to be a sort of a traditional blog in the sense it's an article that's going to show you certain insights, how to do things, and so on and so forth. Those type of content pieces will still be relevant even as companies continue to optimize their content with tools, with AI and so forth. Those type of traditional content will continue to be relevant. However, now that we have tools at our disposal that we can produce high-level content in a more streamlined process, things like ebooks and podcasts and insightful downloads and helpful and actionable documentation will also be you'll also be able to produce it on a mass scale as well. The question is how, right? So you got to create a collaborative framework, right? So from my perspective as a content writer, the way I approach and the way I create a collaborative content framework with my clients is I first of all have a deep insight, industry insight, right? So that means knowing what you're actually talking about. One of the unique one of our unique propositions as an agency is that we're coming at it from a security professional standpoint. We're not just, oh, you want an article about surfing? We got you. You want an article about baking? We got you. No, we're unique to the physical security industry. We're unique security content writers. So in that sense, that insight already is going to give us an advantage over a generalist, if you will. But more than just an industry insight, I need to know what my clients. I need to know their North Star. I need to know what are their objectives, their goals. I need to understand their tone, their voice, and so forth. And then develop a client-centric collaboration framework. So that means using tools to communicate regularly. That means a process where the editing is flowing in a smooth manner. So a feedback loop that is not, like, once again, it's not just by default. It's not relying on Grammarly only, you know? So there has to be a relationship there, if you will. And I think that's really how you produce strategic and scalable content. And then finally, you need the analytics and the accountability piece in part, because if you don't know what you're tracking, then how are you going to make adjustments? How are you going to improve your writing? So you need to be accountable in many ways. So that, in a nutshell, is the framework that I use to produce sustainable, engaging, and actionable content that is helpful for security integrators, service providers that are trying to drive business by using content writing, by deploying content at scale. So I work with selective security providers and integrators. If you want more information about myself or how I go about doing this, feel free to check out my website. If you have any questions, drop it in.